As the dust settles after this Luka Doncic trade, we begin to see a few things come into light. First of all, the press conference with Rob Pelinka and Luka Doncic did not add up to what Nico Harrison has said in his press conference. And second of all, we're hearing a lot of sort of defensive statements being made by the Mavericks front office people, the CEO, the owner, as well as Mark Cuban making certain statements. But we're going to break this down layer by layer, and I want to start off first with just setting the cultural tone of this new ownership in Dallas. A new identity has to be made. The Dumont family spent $3.5 billion on this franchise, and whatever cultural issues that have had existed before they arrived, especially with Mark Cuban, we've seen some of the lawsuits and how petty Luka got with upper management, even spilling over on court during the game when he had first arrived in Dallas. And first, we'll hear from their brand new CEO, Rick Welts, as he spoke on setting the cultural tone.
This is what I've done my whole life. So this is a perfect setup for me at this stage of my life to be able to come into an organization that has a wonderful history, has a hell of a basketball team, which I'm not used to when I first come to an organization, and have a hand in like crafting a future that Dallas Mavericks fans can be really excited about. This brand, the Mavericks, have been defined by Mark Cuban over the last 20 years. That's another challenge for this organization that I've said we have to redefine the Mavericks brand. It's no longer just Mark Cuban, and we need to really think about what we want the Mavericks to stand for and how we're gonna build everything we do to achieve that goal. So that's a work in progress.
And it will be a work in progress. No billionaire wants to purchase a custom multi-million-dollar Bugatti, in this case, a multi-billion-dollar franchise, with the previous owner's name stitched into the seats. And with this Dallas Mavericks franchise, there was a lot of fingerprints left, with Luka being there, of just Mark Cuban's overall aura and whatever cultural issues existed before they took over. Again, one of the worst positions an NBA owner could be in is really being a minority owner of a team. You have no real power, no real say-so. And in this case, for the Dumont family, nothing is worse than spending $3.5 billion on a franchise with another man's fingerprints all over it. Just look at the sentiment of Mark Cuban when he had to sit down with Bill Gates and someone asked him about the trade.
And so I wanted to start off with a question because you've been in, unique situations and maybe you can help. If after you left Microsoft, you found out that Steve Ballmer traded Windows 11, like the new hot operating system, for Windows 10, the Hall of Fame, but older operating system. What would you do?
The real question is, what will the Dumont family do after spending $3.5 billion and another man's blueprint was all over the franchise, and mainly a cultural cancer was left over in Luka, and that same cultural cancer had an incoming bill. You see, that Luka extension would have netted him over $70 million a year. And this is something that doesn't get talked about too much. How much would it cost the Dumont family to construct a roster around Luka every single season after that contract? We see the Phoenix Suns right now grappling through those same struggles, facing over $150 million luxury tax bill. That's the part that never gets talked about. Because even after the Anthony Davis trade, the Mavericks are already going to pay a pretty hefty luxury tax bill going forward. And that's without them giving Kyrie his extension and figuring out other players' contracts after they get off their rookie scale deals. So you can only imagine if Luka was still on the roster with that extension. They could have been looking at the same limitations that the Phoenix Suns is going through with a brand new owner that got a little bit too happy and just taking on large contracts. And make no mistake about it, the business side of it is really important, because even in this trade, the Mavericks gave up being relevant for the next 10 years with Luka. What's the worth of something like that? Just being relevant in the league, going into playoff series year after year. All this is happening in a time where the league is going through a transition into streaming. The Mavs themselves had to find alternative ways to broadcast the local game within their own market. So having Luka around was worth it. Just look at the boost the relevancy gave the Lakers by just trading for Luka. That whole LA market and economy. Things are looking up the next 10 years. But again, we're going to break this down layer by layer as Dwayne Wade gave some good insight to how this trade overall affects the whole league.
So I look at obviously I've been a player. I've been involved in my own leaving of a team, traded in the team. I'm now on the other side of it as well, in the investor side of the league. So my mind goes into like, what does this mean overall? And so I started to calculate everything. I said, okay, all right, after my shock wore off a little bit about the trade and when it went down, trading a 25-year-old superstar, I started thinking about the game and the business of the game. And so first of all, I said to myself, before all the reports come out, I said, oh, this wasn't no players was involved in this decision. Yeah. This was billionaire business.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This was at the top. This was the last 12 to 15 years, the players have decided, right, what we want to do. This was the owners, the governors, the billionaires deciding what they want to do. And so I looked at
Now right there, interesting dynamic with the owners now being in the driver's seat of what they want to do. You see, this is where things get interesting because this new CBA that the players union have agreed with the owners, it really hurts some of the mobility that the players are used to having. Them kind of being in the driver's seat of their career and where they want to play. This Luka trade definitely signifies that a player with that type of resume at the prime of his career, if he does not mesh well with ownership, they'll have no hesitation to give him away. Because again, that upcoming contract that Luka was going to get, it was going to be even more expensive to build a team around him. Ownership have to commit to that. It's not necessarily they were trying to commit to the over $300 million for 5 years to give to Luka. They're thinking about everything around that. The limitations on how they can construct a roster. The same thing that the Phoenix Suns are dealing with. Along with that pending incoming luxury tax bill. This move right here has awakened some of the NBA players of how this power dynamic is going to sort of shift heading into this new streaming TV deal. It would be crazy to think that the league is entering into a $76 billion deal, leaving things up to the players to have complete control of the power dynamic. And things will be more interesting once LeBron James leaves because they won't have a player who controls that much of the NBA economy trying to call the shots. So the NBA players' leverage is going to be even more down heading into this new deal. RIP player movement.
business of the game. I said, okay. So the NBA, who everyone talks about, the viewership in America is down. We talked about on this show, the NBA is an international game. Yep. The NFL, this is where they at. We are here, but we international. And so our viewership, our money, our stars in the game today are all international players for the most part.
Sure.
So now you look at it and you say, okay, one of the biggest international stars now at 25 years old, gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. The biggest market in the world for sports is the Lakers. And so I look at this and I say, okay, obviously Dallas, like we talked about, this is a win now situation for Dallas, right? They came off of someone who we all was like, man, it's Luka Magic, he's a star. But how they feel they want to win a championship, they didn't feel that at this time in his career that he can do that with a win now team. Right? They want a win now mentality. And so I looked at it, I said, this is amazing from the standpoint of the business of the game. Luka is now, he was number 6 in jersey sales, right? Coming in Dallas. Luka now shoots number 1 in jersey sales with the Lakers.
For sure.
Now the international market, think about it, we just signed a new TV deal, a couple, 25 billion, let's just throw that out there. All right, $25 billion TV deal. So now internationally, you got the top international player in LA. So the viewership, the ticket sales, everybody, Europe, Spain, they all coming into LA. We know how this, so I'm looking at the business and I'm like,
woo, you see all that equity that the Mavericks had gave up? Luka gave him all that relevancy. And even though him on the Lakers could possibly produce the number 1 best-selling jersey, number 6 is nothing to scoff at. And when it comes to streaming, things could get filmed from anywhere. And Texas is no stranger to that. Look at the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. That was a global stream. Again, right here, just seeing all the money that was passed up by the Mavs by just shipping him out. It's not far-fetched to say there was definitely a cultural issue going down there in Dallas.
Yo,
Hold up. This was an amazing business decision by billionaires.
For sure.
To say, this is what I want for now, and this is what we need as a league. You get 10 years of Luka being the face of the Lakers, but you also get to put him with LeBron James, who, let's say he can play as long as he wants, but you get to put him with the guy who's been the face of the league, who can show him how to be the face of the league, and also too, who can show him how to take care of himself the way he needs to take care of himself. That is the best example you can have.
Yeah.
You put him with the Lakers, you put him with LeBron, go learn, because we need you to be the face of this league. Because this is a business, and this is about bread too. And so I looked at the business side, I was like, this is genius.
Yeah, no doubt.
No
doubt.
Yeah.
That's where my mind went. I went business. I'm like, forget this.
No
I know the
doubt.
emotions of the players and the trades and all this, but I'm like, let's look at this in its entire, like, look at this overall and just see how the market has shifted and changed to where now you put the number, I don't know the numbers, but you put one of the top players in the national in the biggest market in the game, and now you put them with the biggest player in the game to not only play with them and number one jersey sale, they're gonna do their thing, but also too, you set them up, you set the league up for the next 10 years, having a face in your top market.
And we can already see the impact with the NBA taking over just the overall news cycle during the NFL media week for their Super Bowl. That week was jam-packed. I mean, the NBA just completely took over. We have not seen that in years. It was Grammy week. The WWE had the Royal Rumble. There was so many events going on at the same time. You had Kendrick Lamar, Drake, hip-hop kind of beef winding down at the Super Bowl halftime show. The NBA took over all those talks. It's crazy to think that this is coming off of the last 2 months of Adam Silver going on press runs, defending the league about all the three-point shooting and just answering questions about all the low ratings. That's how powerful this trade has been. And it makes you wonder why the Mavs would give up all that equity. It's not just about the player and the on-court performance, but the new owner, Patrick Dumont, spoke on Luka on his way out, almost sort of kicking him in his back, not understanding that the fan base has a symbiotic love relationship. Luka has been marketed as a Mavs player. It's almost like Jordan in the number 23. Even though he played for the Washington Wizards, people instantly think of him in a Bulls jersey. The same subconscious thought happens for Luka. Once he's mentioned, number 11 in a Mavs jersey is what people think of. And with all the love Dallas has for him, Patrick Dumont got to understand there's no reason to kick him in the back on his way out.
If you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, they work really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work. You shouldn't be a part of the Dallas Mavericks.
Again, Patrick Dumont mentioning hard work and you shouldn't be part of the Dallas Mavericks. No need to kick the man in his back on the way out. We understand that there's more than likely a cultural issue, but the city has way too much love for him. How you get marketed in the league on your way in is how people more than likely remember you on your way out, even if it doesn't correlate. Look at Zion Williams. His performance on the court has not matched up to the way he was marketed coming into the league. But when people mention his name, they still think of him as a number one pick, as a top player. Shit, it's been 6 years and we really haven't seen it. The same thing here goes for Luka and the number 11 jersey in Dallas. And this is where all the inconsistencies of this whole trade scenario come in. It's during the post-trade Nico Harrison and Luka Doncic press conferences. They gave two different versions of how communication kind of broke down, and it really started with Nico Harrison mentioning Luka's extension. And even though the Mavericks had their introductory press conferences before the Lakers did, Luka was in prime position to confirm what Nico had said. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Luka, Brad Townsend, Dallas Morning News. So you wrote a Dear Dallas letter to fans. It was, very heartfelt. And you talked a little bit about, your shock. How are your feelings toward the upper levels of the organization, Nico in particular, or the decision to trade you?
Well, that's their decision, so I have no comment on that. They made the decision. I don't know why. But that's their decision, so I can't do nothing about it.
And then one of the reasons that was given was that there was concern that, beyond this summer, or that there's a chance you might not agree to the Supermax extension. Did you or anyone on your inner circle indicate that might be the case?
Absolutely not.
And the second part of that question right there negated what Nico Harrison has said when it came to Luka's extension. He mentioned that it's going to be a tumultuous summer. Let's check it out.
At this point in his career, especially without asking out, what got you guys to the point where you felt like moving on from Luka was in the best interest of the franchise?
Yeah, I think it wasn't really like a point. I think it was like, how do we make our team better? There's some unique things about his contract that we had to pay attention to. There's other teams that were loading up, that he was going to be able to make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer.
Now, right there, he's implying that Luka's contract extension is left up to Luka, and they were in a position of not knowing what he was going to do. Nico is implying this.
There's some unique things about his contract that we had to pay attention to. There's other teams that were loading up, that he was going to be able to make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer.
He said we felt like we got in front of what could possibly be a tumultuous summer. Again, listen to Luka dismiss this.
And then one of the reasons that was given was that there was concern that, beyond this summer, or that there's a chance you might not agree to the Supermax extension. Did you or anyone on your inner circle indicate that might be the case?
Absolutely not.
Oh, we're not done yet. Nico was asked another question about Luka's extension, and the inconsistencies continue. This is almost as worse as his fumble when he worked at Nike and he was trying to secure Stephen Curry in a deal, and when he punched open the slide to show him the presentation, it had Kevin Durant's name on it.
Nico, did you have any indication from him or his representation that he was going to opt out or not take the extension or anything like that?
No, not at all. Not at all. Nothing verbally that would lead me to believe that.
That's not what you just said, Nico. That's not what you just said literally a second ago. It's going to be a tumultuous summer. You just said that. And then you just negated it by the time the next question was asked. What the fuck is going on here?
Why would the Supermax be a difficult decision on your end?
Oh, no, it's not a matter of it being a difficult decision. No, it's a matter of, once you put that out there, they accept or they don't. And at that point, you're on the clock.
And right there, he gave another inconsistent. There's 3 questions in a row. He gave, oh my God, this shit is sick. Oh, you know what? Let's listen to it again. Him actually go back on his statements 3 questions in a row. He gave one answer in question A, and question B, he negated it. And question C, he went back to his answer from question A. Unfucking believable.
At this point in his career, especially without asking out, what got you guys to the point where you felt like moving on from Luka was in the best interest of the franchise?
Yeah, I think it wasn't really like a point. I think it was like, how do we make our team better? There's some unique things about his contract that we had to pay attention to. There's other teams that were loading up, that he was going to be able to make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer.
Nico, did you have any indication from him or his representation that he was going to opt out or not take the extension or anything like that?
No, not at all. Not at all. Nothing verbally that would lead me to believe that.
Why would the Supermax be a difficult decision on your end?
Oh no, it's not a matter of it being a difficult decision. It's a matter of, once you put that out there, they accept or they don't, and at that point you're on the clock.
Sheesh. Just say you guys didn't want to super max him. That's all it is. Just say that. You thought it would be expensive. Your owner was not as comfortable paying the luxury tax while building a team around Luka with his work ethic. It was bothering you guys, and you just wasn't comfortable with that. Instead of all this tap dancing around, oh, we offer him the Supermax. It was up to him. Then it could be a tumultuous summer. And then, oh, no, we weren't bothered by contract negotiations with Luka. And then you're going to say, oh, we're in a waiting period. It is what it is. There seems to be a cultural issue. There's no way in hell Luka would have rejected that Supermax, because him going out to LA or just him being traded, he lost out on over $100 million. And he has to pay high taxes in LA. So there was too much of a benefit for him to stay with the Mavericks. But we'll see how this plays out. The new owners spent about $3.5 billion on the Mavericks. Mark Cuban finalized the sale this past November. And the owners probably smelled a hint of too much of his fingerprints within the building. And Luka was the last signifier of that. And they've shown that they're not scared to try to establish their culture, even if it comes with a lot of backlash.